This offseason is shaping up to be one of the most intriguing in recent memory for the Cowboys, and it is not hard to see why. The roster is staring down a series of decisions that could completely reshape the identity of the franchise, and the way everything is connected makes the whole process feel like a giant puzzle. Free agency is right around the corner, and once contracts start getting signed, the questions shift from what the Cowboys want to do to what they can realistically do. The team we see right now is basically a snapshot of a moment before the major changes begin, and while some names feel like locks to return, nothing is guaranteed. Assuming anything in this situation is a fast way to get surprised, and the Cowboys have shown time and time again that they are not afraid to make bold moves. Starting with the quarterback room, this is one of the least urgent areas on the roster, simply because the Cowboys have already made their decision about the starter. Dak Prescott remains the anchor of the offense, and the focus is really on the depth behind him. Joe Milton has been the player the Cowboys have tried to develop into a reliable backup, and for now, that plan is still in place. The bigger question is whether the team will add a third quarterback, either for the practice squad or to bring in a more experienced option. Will Grier's future is uncertain because his futures contract has expired, and the Cowboys could decide to go in a different direction. The quarterback room is stable enough for now, but it is not a group that is immune to change, especially once the rest of the roster starts shifting around, moving up the depth chart. Tight end is a position that deserves more attention than it might get. The Cowboys have their core group intact, with Jake Ferguson leading the way and Brevin Spanford providing a steady role. Luke Schoonmaker is also part of the rotation and has shown flashes of potential. But beyond those three, the depth starts to look thin. The team did not retain Princeton Fant on a futures deal, and that leaves a gap that could become a problem in training camp or the preseason. The Cowboys also lost Ronaldo Farweather, which further thins out the room. This is not a position where the Cowboys are likely to spend a premium, but they still need to add depth. To avoid being short-handed, the most likely solution is to find another late-round pick or an undrafted free agent who can come in and compete. Because the tight end room is solid, but not yet built for the full season. If injuries begin to pile up, kicker is always a position that gets overlooked, but it can have a massive impact on a team's season. Brandon Aubrey is set to be a restricted free agent, and that creates a situation that the Cowboys need to handle carefully. One option is to apply a second-round tender to protect him while they negotiate a long-term deal. The advantage of a second-round tender is that it does not hit the cap as hard as the franchise tag, making it a more manageable financial move. The reality is that if another team is willing to give up a second-round pick for a kicker, it would be tough for the Cowboys to let him walk. Aubrey has proven he can be a reliable weapon for the offense, and his value has never been higher if the Cowboys can secure a long-term deal. The kicker question disappears. Until then, it remains one of the key items to watch this offseason. Now the more serious needs start to come into focus, and that begins with the offensive line. On paper, the Cowboys have a starting five that looks stable, but the real question is whether that group is built to last. Especially when you look at the right tackle position. Terrence Steele's future is the biggest wild card on the line, and if the team decides to move on from him, the entire situation changes. Steele has not been a disaster, but his inconsistency is a concern, and the Cowboys cannot afford to pay for uncertainty. The financial implications also make this a complicated decision. Steele carries a cap hit of $18 million, with $14 million in new cash that has not yet been paid. The dead money is $9.38 million, and cutting him before June 1st would result in $8.75 million in dead money. Cutting him after June 1st would create a $14 million cap hit, but that money would not be available immediately. The bigger picture is that cutting Steele could free up resources to address other needs, like upgrading the linebacker group, which makes the decision one of the most significant offseason choices the Cowboys face. Beyond Steele, the rest of the offensive line still has its own set of questions. Tyler Smith remains a key piece, and if he can stay healthy, he is one of the most important players on the roster. Tyler Biadasz and Dalton Schultz are also part of the group, along with other depth pieces. But injuries and consistency have been an issue. The Cowboys will need to decide whether they can keep the current depth intact, or if they need to bring in more competition. Brock Hoffman and Robert Jones are both free agents, and the team will have to decide whether to bring them back. There are younger players like Nate Davis and Johnny Cornelius who could compete. But if the Cowboys move on from Steele, the entire line might need to be reshuffled. It might not require a blockbuster free agent signing, but it could require a draft pick and a veteran addition. To ensure the line is solid for the season, when we move to the cornerback position, the concerns start to become more serious. The Cowboys have some pieces under contract, but the group is not exactly one that inspires confidence. Donde Banks has shown potential, but staying healthy has been a major issue for him. Stephon Gilmore is still a big name, but he is not the long-term answer the Cowboys need. The young players like Jalen Johnson, Kelvin Joseph, and Zion Logue are promising, but most of them feel like they are competing for backup roles rather than starting jobs. The reality is that the Cowboys likely need at least one starter at cornerback, even if they bring back players like Trevon Diggs or someone similar. The coaching staff has made it clear that improving the secondary is a priority, which suggests the team recognizes the problem. The cornerback room is a position that will almost certainly be addressed once free agency begins, because the Cowboys cannot rely on the current group to carry them through a full season without a major upgrade. Now we get into the positions where the urgency becomes undeniable, and wide receiver is one of those areas that could look very different, depending on how the offseason plays out. George Pickens is a free agent, and his status creates a major question mark for the Cowboys. The passing game has been built around DAK, Prescott, and CeeDee Lamb, and Pickens was a major contributor last season. He helped keep the offense alive when the defense was struggling, and his presence on the field made a huge difference. If the Cowboys do not bring him back, that would leave a significant hole in the receiver group. The team might need to find a replacement through the draft or free agency, but ideally they bring him back and then add depth later, once Pickens is locked in. The receiver need drops significantly, but until that happens, it remains one of the biggest storylines of the offseason. Safety is another position that has been on the radar for a long time. The Cowboys have some players under contract, including Jaron Kearse and Malik Hooker, but the group lacks a true impact player. There are young players like Elijah Molden and Marcel Aitman, but the team still needs a starter who can make a difference. Donovan Wilson is a free agent, which adds to the uncertainty, and the Cowboys have been openly discussing the need to add a playmaker at safety. This is one of those positions that can change a defense instantly if the team finds the right player, and it has been a long time since the Cowboys had a true game-changing safety. If they can bring in that kind of talent, it could be the missing piece that takes the defense to the next level. Running back is also on the list, but it is a position that could shift in priority depending on how free agency unfolds. Javonte Williams and Malik Davis are both free agents, and that creates uncertainty at the top of the depth chart. The Cowboys have depth with players like Jaden Hardy, Deuce Vaughn, and Israel Abanikanda, but the role of the lead back is not set. The team has indicated they want to bring back Williams, and if they are able to do that, the running back need drops considerably. Williams had a strong season and proved he can be a key part of the offense if he returns. The Cowboys can focus more on addressing defensive needs, but until those contracts are settled, running back remains a position to monitor. The final stretch of the list is where the real defensive needs become impossible to ignore. And the linebacker group is where the Cowboys have to be most honest with themselves. The group has been a weak point for years, and this offseason is no different. The team has stars like Micah Parsons and Leighton Vander Esch, but beyond them the depth is shaky. Marvin Wilson has struggled with injuries, and other players have not shown they can be reliable starters. The Cowboys may need to add to starting caliber linebackers this offseason, because the current group does not inspire confidence. Whether they do that through the draft or free agency remains to be seen, but it is clearly a priority. The defense cannot be rebuilt without addressing the linebacker position, because it is the heart of the unit and affects everything else. And then there is the edge rusher position, which is the biggest hole on the roster. The Cowboys simply do not have enough pass rushers under contract, and the ones they do have not been enough to make the defense competitive. The team has shown interest in bringing back key players, but the reality is they need more depth and talent in this area. Whether that comes through free agency or the draft, it has to happen. The edge rusher position is one of the most important in the NFL, and the Cowboys have to treat it as such. If they can solve this problem, it would instantly improve the defense and give the team a chance to compete at a higher level. As it stands, this is the most pressing issue on the roster, and it will be the story of the offseason for Dallas, now that we have laid out the biggest needs. On paper, it is time to start connecting the dots and understanding what all of this means for the Cowboys' offseason strategy. The truth is that the biggest challenge is not just identifying the holes, but figuring out the timing and the order in which they get addressed. The Cowboys are not operating with unlimited cap space, and every decision affects what they can do next. The first question is how many of the current free agents will actually return, because some of them feel like locks but nothing is official until the ink is dry. That uncertainty is what makes this offseason so tense, because the front office has to balance keeping the core intact while also finding ways to upgrade the defense, which has been the team's biggest weakness for years. The offense, despite its flaws, remains one of the strengths of this team. Dak Prescott is still the anchor, and when he is healthy, the Cowboys can score with anyone. The receiving corps is one of the best in the league, and the offensive line has shown it can be dominant at times. But the offensive line is also the one unit that can turn into a problem very quickly if injuries or contract decisions go the wrong way. If the Cowboys decide to cut Terrence Steele, the ripple effect would be huge. It would force them to address the right tackle position immediately, and it could also force a reevaluation of the rest of the line. The good news is that the Cowboys have young players who can compete, and the draft is full of offensive line talent. The front office just has to be smart about how they allocate resources, because the line is the foundation of the offense, and if it starts to fall apart, the entire team will struggle. The tight end room is another area that might not get a lot of attention, but it is important for how the offense operates. Jake Ferguson has developed into a reliable target, and he has become a key part of the passing game. Luke Schoonmaker has shown flashes of being a future contributor, and Brevin Spanford has shown that he can be a role player. But the tight end position is one where depth matters because the role is physically demanding, and injuries happen. The Cowboys need to add at least one more player who can step in and play if needed. The draft is a good place to find that kind of depth, and the Cowboys have historically been good at finding late-round contributors. The key is not to let the position become a weakness. The offense is already built around the passing game, and the tight ends are an important part of that. If the Cowboys can add a reliable backup, it will give the offense more flexibility and make the unit stronger. Before we roll on, subscribe to Cowboys Wire News. Drop a like and turn on the bell. Your support keeps the Dallas Cowboys updates coming. Tell us what you think in the comments. The NFL rumor mill was shaken after a blunt statement attributed to Jerry Jones began circulating behind the scenes of the league. According to people close to the situation, the Cowboys owner has privately insisted that the potential departure of Dak Prescott was not a front office decision, but rather a move initiated by the quarterback himself. The phrase repeated in league circles is direct and provocative. He's the one who asked to leave the Cowboys, while no official separation has been confirmed. The idea that Prescott may have pushed for the exit has added a new layer of intrigue to an already delicate situation in Dallas. For years, Dak was seen as the face of the franchise, a leader carefully developed and publicly supported by Jones. That is precisely why this rumor has resonated so strongly. If true, it suggests a fracture that goes beyond contracts or playbooks, touching on trust, long-term vision, and control. Sources speculate that internal disagreements may have grown quietly. Some believe Prescott wanted greater influence over the offensive direction, while others whisper about dissatisfaction with the organization's ability to surround him with consistent championship-level support. From the Cowboys' perspective, there is also talk that Jones felt blindsided, interpreting the request as a personal and professional setback after years of loyalty. The rumor has fueled debate across the league. Was this a power move by a veteran quarterback seeking a fresh start, or a strategic narrative shift by ownership to soften the impact of a potential breakup? Both interpretations are circulating freely, with no clear answer yet. What is clear is that the perception of Prescott's exit, if it happens, may hinge on who controls the story. In Dallas, perception often matters as much as performance. By framing the situation as player-driven, the Cowboys protect their image of stability while subtly redefining Prescott's legacy with the franchise. Until the dust settles, the league watches closely, knowing that rumors like this rarely appear without a deeper truth waiting to surface. That's a wrap from Cowboys Wire News. For breaking Cowboys updates, subscribe, drop a like, and turn on the bell. Tell us your take in the comments.